Good morning. This is my garden. This is a Texas Cooking Today garden. It's not what today's video is about. Today's video is about par frying. It is about how to make food that's pre-prepared for you to just take and either put in the oven or in a fryer and cook it up and it's ready to go. Par frying is a really cool thing. And the reason I wanted to do a video on this was because one of my viewers, Carrie, contacted me in the comments box on my fried okra and said, could you show us your take on par frying and how to do that properly? And I thought, okay, that would be really cool. I think I'll do that video. So we're going to be getting some okra and we're going to be doing a par fry video. I think I'll also use a little zucchini too. You could use anything. You could use, let's say, oh, looky down here, some green tomatoes. I don't think theirs are quite ready, but I have some others maybe. You could use pretty much any kind of vegetable you want to do par frying. Although some fry techniques work better for this than others. And we're going to get into that in a minute. So let's go and look for some vegetables. Do some par frying with them. Okay, let's see if we got some okra down here. Oh, looky here. They're little plants, but they already are producing. I'll say this. One thing that okra loves hot weather. We got a lot of that. All right, now, let's take a look here. Bunch of little babies on there, some flower buds everywhere. Oh, we're gonna have a lot of okra. I think I see some down here. Let's take a look. All right, let's see here. This one has a big one on it. Thing about okra, you need to keep it harvested. If you keep cutting that okra, keep harvesting, then the plants will keep growing and they'll get enormous. Okra, yeah, I love it. Oh, looky there, that's a nice one. It's an awful big okra from one small little plant, isn't it? Some of these feel a little bit lightweight, but if they are not quite as juicy as I'm wanting them to be, then I've got some others that I purchased. I was hoping I would have enough out front, and sure enough, here we are. We're going to be doing the okra, and I'm going to be using a zucchini to teach this technique. So basically, it's a really simple thing. You take whatever vegetable you want, you wash it, then slice it, season it. Okay, that's important. Before anything else, season it, then batter it. Okay, you don't have to season it, but I'll tell you what, you put a little bit of salt and pepper on there when you're preparing that stuff, it goes a long ways. Something you need to know about seasoning when you're frying. If you're frying anything that has what they call a volatile oil in it, for instance, let's say something that has lemon oil, or maybe paprika has chili, the oleoresin capsaicin, okay, so there's an oil there. If you're cooking with anything that is flavored like an oil flavor, then it's going to wash out in the frying oil. So if you want your item to be spicy hot and you put a lot of cayenne on it, it's not going to be as spicy hot as you put the amount of cayenne on there, because a lot of it's going to wash out into the oil. That same rule applies for a lot of different flavors, but some flavors come through. Salt comes through, black pepper comes through, even though there's an oil in it that provides that flavor, not all of it gets washed out. So you can use black pepper, you can use anything, but certain things where there is oil, you need to use more. Herbs work really well. For instance, we're going to be doing one of these vegetables with this right here. These are panko breadcrumbs, and I've got seasoning in there. We got some Italian seasoning, you know, basically like basil and oregano, a little thyme, that kind of stuff. Works great for stuff like that. All right, so we're going to be doing this little guy with some of that. We're going to be doing these with the cornmeal here. I've got some flour over here. We've got eggs and we've got milk. This is the stuff that you need to do your basic frying with, so you just get all that together. The idea of par frying is, the word par means partial. Okay, we're going to partially fry this stuff. Then we're going to pull it out of the oil. We're going to freeze it. That's all there is to it. Afterwards, you're going to see what it looks like when it comes out of the freezer. It's frozen, and then we either bake it or fry it. What that turns out for us. All right? And so that's the advantage. You can do this days or weeks later. You cook the stuff up for yourself. It's like going to the freezer section at the grocer and purchasing pre-battered items in a bag at the freezer section. You're just making it yourself. Before we get into this, I need to mention certain techniques, battering techniques, don't work that well. All right? Liquid batters that make puffy batters, you know, like a tempura batter, or let's say a souffle batter, those don't really do that well when you're going to par fry it and freeze it. They just don't. They don't set well, and then they retain too much of the oil, and it turns into a mess later on. Dry batter is what we're looking for, okay? Where we use flour to start with, and that gives a binder on the item, and then we put it in some liquid, whether it's buttermilk, or in this case I'm going to use eggs with milk. The eggs help to speed browning. Believe it or not, it works. All right, but it's just one of the ways of doing it. You can do this a lot of different ways. You can use anything on the liquid portion. You could use beer on the liquid portion if you wanted to, okay? It'll work fine. You just need something that A, is going to activate the gluten in the flour, and B, act as a binder for the next item you put on there, which is going to be either breadcrumbs or cornmeal or flour, okay? You can go right back to the flour. A good example, let's say you're going to do a par fried chicken or par fried chicken steak. All right, I would prepare it the exact same way I do any chicken fried steak. I'll pound it out, season it, I'll hit it with some flour, then into the buttermilk mixture, and then back into the flour, and then right into the oil. And for that I use buttermilk. You don't have to. You can do this method, but remember, the egg will brown faster than the buttermilk batter. Plain and simple. So I like to use buttermilk when it comes to meat because it's going to cook longer. In the same way on that chicken. So you par fry it for a couple of minutes there in the oil, long enough to set that batter. You take that out, you put it on a draining rack, and you freeze it. All right, then you've got your chicken ready to go. So the technique I want to show you today works for meat, works for vegetables, whatever you want to do. This is a really cool technique. Now, come on over. Let's get on to this. Make it. Come on. I went ahead and gave these all a wash, and of course it's smart to do just to wash your vegetables, all right? I always do that. But also it's a nice thing to wash them because that water is going to help the first layer of batter, that flour, to stick a little better. The flour needs to stick to help the egg mixture to stick, to help the final layer to stick. Okay, it all works together as a team. All right, so we're going to take that okra, we're just going to cut it in sections about what you would normally see for fried okra, which is usually about a ½ inch. Okay, I like to make my tips a little bit longer, and this is Clemson spineless is what this is. Now I'll say this, when I cut this one, it sounded and felt somewhat fibrous. Yeah, that's too fibrous. I'm not going to bother with it. And this one might be the same way. Yep, same exact way. Let's look inside of him. See that? The seeds are really big. Now some companies might go ahead and use that, but for me, that sucker is just a bit hard and a bit more than I want to use. So, for this demonstration, what we have on the smaller ones is going to be more than enough. There we have enough for a demonstration and for one serving, and that's all it's going to take. Now, when I cut this, I want to cut it in some little wedges, okay? And if you'll notice, the squash that I'm using is a bit young, so the meat runs all the way through and you don't have a lot of seeds. In other words, it's not too pulpy or watery, and that's beneficial in this process. Okay, so we can use as much of that as we like. We got two wonderful servings, one of okra, one of our zucchini here. we need to season it, right? I mentioned seasoning, right? Yeah. So let's get some salt on there, right? Our vegetables need salt just like our meat does. A little bit of black pepper. Oh yeah. There we go. Now we need to get flour onto these. Now I'm going to fry all of these together, but in separate batches, okay? So we're going to do okra in the first batch. I'm going to hit a little flour on that. Now here's the thing. How do I separate the okra from the flour? All right, let me show you a neat little trick here. I have a sifter. Now you can either pour all of it into the sifter, or you can just pull out what you mostly have, toss it down into your sifter. Okay. This will speed it up a lot. Now, if I was working in a commercial kitchen, I would have taken this first bowl and I would have flipped it straight over into this, and I would have just started shaking. All right, until I surfaced out these, and I probably would have pulled them off the top. Okay, so not so hard to do. Okay, so I've got that ready to go into the egg mixture. All right, let me pull that aside and put it in our first bowl. The ratio I'm going to use on my eggs and milk is going to be 1/4 cup of milk to each egg. And that is pretty much a 50-50 ratio, folks, on average. And break those yolks. Just work that in. So our next thing is we got to get this into this, and then into what we're going to be frying with. And that is going to be the cornmeal. But I also need to make sure that my oil is hot. Now I'm using some peanut oil over here. I'll turn my burner on and get that thing preheating while I'm busy doing this. Take all of this right down in there, okay? Now I need something to move it from one place to another. Here we go. Right into this and give it a shake. Now I'm just going to set these aside, and they can sit in that cornmeal for a while. It won't hurt them. All right, now when your oil gets up to about that 300 to 325 range, right in there, that's when you want to take and put whatever you're going to be par frying down in there. Okay, and here's the thing. Number one, don't overload the oil, okay? That would be a very bad thing to do. You overload your oil and things don't fry the right way. Okay, I think that's all of it. Start my timer, and this is a count up timer. I don't want this to fry to cook all of the way. I'm only wanting to partially cook it. All right, so partially cooking means that I can set the batter. Once the batter is set, then we can freeze it. The whole idea is not to cook the item, it's to set the batter. And so we're doing this right at 325 degrees. Now the other thing you'll need is to have a drain pan. These right here are called pan racks. Pan racks are fabulous. They are fantastic for so much stuff. And when it comes to doing something like this, well folks, they're just downright indispensable. So do yourself a favor, get you some pan racks. You can bake on them. You can drain stuff like this on them. You can cool your cookies on them when you're baking. They do all kinds of neat stuff. I've even seen somebody take these and use them for dicing up eggs. They would take hard-boiled eggs and shove them through this when making egg salad to do the cutting really fast. What a neat thing, huh? All right, let's take some of our other goodie here, get it down in that oil, get it frying. And again, I'm not looking to cook these all the way through. I'm looking to set the batter, nothing more. And that looks very much like what you would pull out of the bag when you go and purchase pre-battered vegetables to be cooked. Almost always it's a dry batter, if you'll notice. And rarely will they use a liquid batter in the freezer section. I mean, that's just kind of very, very uncommon. There's some batter. Okay, now this has been cooking for about 1.5 minutes. And I gave it just a moment longer, only for its size. And the fact that my oil had cooled down just a little bit, so I wasn't frying nearly as hot. We're going to take these, we're going to put them into the freezer. I'm going to freeze them down, and once they're frozen, we're going to pull them back out. We're going to finish cooking them. And we're going to do them 2 different ways. We're going to do them in the oven, and we're going to fry them, okay? Both ways. I've been heating some oil here, and I'm going to go ahead and shut off the burner because it's getting pretty warm. It's getting close to 300 degrees. Also, I need to preheat this oven. And I'm going to set my oven right at 350 degrees. Get that preheated. I have the okra and I have the zucchini. They are both frozen now. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if this is frozen for an hour or if it's frozen for a day or a week. It's still going to cook the same after it's been frozen. It's not going to be the same as doing fresh. That's all there is to it. It's the reason when you go get stuff in the freezer section at the grocer and you cook it up, it's not the same as when it's made fresh, okay? Because it's not fresh, it's been frozen, okay? But it's still good. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna pull out the frozen items that we've made. We're going to get them separated. One for frying and one for baking. The oven right now is preheating. As I mentioned, we got the oil here that's good and hot for frying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the oil up to 325 in just a moment. And we're going to cook off those items that we've par cooked. And we're going to take a look at them after the fact and see what they taste like and what their crunch is like and everything else. So there we have that. Now I'm going to set my burner down just a little bit so it's heating, but it's not too hot because it's almost 300 degrees. And get my frozen items. All right, here we go. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that look good? We have this. That looks every bit as good as any product that you're going to get at your grocery store in the freezer section. These wonderful little items we've done in a panko breadcrumb that has been seasoned. So we have wonderful seasoned squash. This can be done with yellow squash or anything you want to do that with. So enjoy this recipe that way. I want to take some of this right here, and put on my baking sheet. I'm going to separate it just a little bit, not a whole lot. One more, right here. Good. And I want to take some of this. Put it on the other side. See, a lot of these items that we get at the grocery in the freezer section that have been par fried, done this exact same way, are a kind of item where they give you multiple directions. You can heat this in multiple different ways. Toaster oven, in your oven, you can fry it. Okay, so there's usually a lot of different ways of doing them. And what we're doing is just finding out how each way works. All right, now I normally don't do this for myself. So for me, this is as much we're experimenting as I am teaching here. I know the process, I've done the process before, but I don't normally keep fresh stuff around like that. If I'm going to do okra that's fried, I just chop up okra, batter it, and fry it. But if you're the kind of person that has, let's say, a family and you are working through the day and you want something frozen, you can come home and throw into the fryer, hey, this is going to work for you. All right, so what do we got here? It's coming up. As soon as the temperature is right on the oil and the oven, we'll switch the cameras back on. We're gonna get it started. My oil has come up in temperature. In fact, it's a little over 325 or about 350. Won't hurt a thing though. And I have my baking items here. These usually take longer, so I'm gonna go ahead and get them in the oven, 350 degrees, and we're gonna bake them until they look right. I don't know how long. Sometimes you just gotta work with what you gotta work with. That's part of being a cook. That's part of cooking, is knowing that and knowing how to handle that. Now, here we go. I'm gonna get this right down in our oil. There we go. Get that fried up. Put some heat back under that again. So what I want to do is just cook these until I have a nice even brown across them. Okay, and it's pretty much the same instructions that you get with any item like this from the store. I'm guessing what's in the oven here is probably going to be 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm guessing what's in the hot oil for the okra is probably going to be 3 to 4 minutes, and in the neighborhood of about 6 to 10 minutes on the squash. I don't know yet until I cook it. So we're gonna find out. My count up timer's going on there. We're 1 minute, 13 seconds and counting, so here we go. Now my cooling rack, drain rack, I'm gonna use the same one I used right here for freezing it. It's working fine, so no reason to go messing with what works. I'm seeing some light browning beginning. Looks nice. Yes, looks very good. Now, come a little closer, let's take a close look at this. All right, my timer says 2 minutes, 40 seconds. This is taking on a nice, beautiful golden brown. So I'm gonna say somewhere around 3 minutes, this thing is gonna be ready, right? Beautiful. And of course, as I mentioned before, we had that frozen, totally frozen solid to this core. And so we're going to get the same exact effect that we would if we were cooking up some that came out of a bag in a freezer section at our grocer, okay? So we have 3.5 minutes on these. Taking them out now. Look at that, that's beautiful. Oh yes, send to Papa. There we go. Now, being careful as we go, we can put these down in our oil. Get it frying. The clock says 6 minutes and 13 seconds, which means these have been in here now for about 3 minutes, okay? And we have beautiful browning going on, okay? So they're coming right along. I would say they're getting very close to ready because I don't want my browning to be too dark. And it just doesn't take long to cook squash, okay? It takes a long, you cook it a little longer, and of course you've overcooked your squash and it gets mushy. You don't want that. You want a semi-firm piece of squash with a nice brown crust around it and a good flavor going on. So we're coming up on 7 minutes, and that gives me 3.5 minutes on these also. I'm going to go ahead and pull them out right now. Those some beautiful looking items right there, huh? So I guess, looky there. As far as the frying side of it, it looks beautiful, but there's always the taste test. Okay, we're gonna give these a moment to cool down, and I wanna taste them and tell you what I think. Get a hot pad here. I need to take a look. It's 13.5 minutes. It's looking good, but I think I want it to get a little more brown. So I'm gonna leave it in there. Now this is what we need to try right now. Oh yeah, that fried stuff. Be careful transferring it in case it's too hot. All right, easy enough. Now for the taste test. Sweet, crunchy, well seasoned, delicious, tender. Nothing like cut right off of the plant fresh. That's good. Okay, and now for our squash. Very good. Now, it's kind of a battering technique. We'll leave squash a little bit moist underneath, but the batter holds up and stays crunchy if you fry it. Don't know about baking. We're about to find out. Okay, that's just flat delicious. So, enjoy these. You know it's going to work if it's fried. We're going to take a look at the baked stuff in just a minute, as soon as it's done. See, we're at 15 minutes now. I figured it would take about 15, but it's slow on the browning. So who knows, maybe 20. All right, let's look at my timer here. The timer's just now turning over to 19:04. So we're coming up on 20 minutes, and I wanted to take these items out of the oven no later than 20 minutes because I think that's a good period of time for such small items to at least get to their maximum heat, and also to get a little extra cook on that outer batter, which is actually what I was trying to do. Now, it won't do as well as frying because frying is such an intense heat right against the batter itself. However, we can try, all right? And that's what we're doing right here. So, 1940, I'm pulling it out. All right. Got a very hot pan. So, going to give that just a moment to cool, just like I did with the ones out of the fryer. But I'm not going to do anything as far as putting them on a cooling rack. I'm just going to let them cool right where they're at. I'm making sure nothing is stuck, and nothing sure enough is stuck. So we didn't have any sticking problems. And I think that's due in part to the fact that there's just so much oil there. You know, it was fried in oil, so the oil is going to be coming out of it a little bit on the pan when you bake it. I do have some good browning on this. It's not intense, but there is browning there, okay? So, and it was more what was against the pan than what was face up, but it still worked out well. Okay, I've got them both here, fried and baked. We're gonna try the baked. Slightly sweeter than the fried. The crunch isn't as good on the batter. And honestly, I didn't expect it to be. The baked never does seem to come out that way. Okay. These, I can already tell you they're soft. I can feel it. Because I used panko, the panko part's crunchy. Everything else, a little bit soft and wet. And that's, I guess, kind of normal for squash if you bake it. But it came out great if you fry it. So I guess on this one, par frying, wonderful. It's sweet and delicious. I love it. Par frying is a wonderful little gift. It allows us to do things and to delay gratification, basically. We make it today, we enjoy it tomorrow. Okay? Not a big deal. And if you're already making fried okra, why not just double the batch and freeze half of it? It's not going to be that much harder, right? And besides, you don't have to fully cook it. You're only going to par cook it. So you're cooking it for a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes at the most, and throwing it right up into the freezer. Definitely give this a try. You're going to like the outcome, what you get from it. It really is neat. And if it's the kind of thing where you normally pull out frozen stuff to cook and have for dinner, this could be a win-win for you. And it is a fun technique to try. Thank you for watching. Please look in the comments box right underneath this. You're going to see Texas Cooking Today. You're also going to see S.A.Trotter.com, and that's where I sell my recipes and also my art and my services. So please take a look at my website. Take a look at the rest of my channel. Lots of recipes there. And thank you for enjoying this video. Oh, stick around just one moment. I'm going to come in here and show you one of my recipes and show you why they're such a value. I wanted to mention to you my recipes. Yes, I sell my recipes. Okay, look, some people, they give the recipes out for free and they charge for the tutorial. So I do it the opposite on YouTube. You get the tutorial for free, I charge for the recipe. I did a lot of work, a lot of writing, a lot of extra stuff that goes with this, okay? Come over a little closer. Let me show you one of these up close so you really realize what you're getting. And then also, I'm offering one for free. We'll take a quick look at that right now. Come here. This is what I'm talking about right here. When I fill out a recipe, when I write one, I always bullet point all of the ingredients, okay? A simple one or a complex one. I, in addition, number the instructions, and often I'll give pictures with it. Now, not all of them are this well done, but this is what I'm going for on every single one from here on out. All of my new recipes you're going to see done this way. And on the end of the recipe, there's always a place for notes for yourself, okay? Right now, go to my website. You're going to get this one right here for free, okay? Cinnamon rolls. Enjoy that cinnamon rolls recipe and take a look at the others I have. They're really worth your time.